Welcome to the Brief Newsbrief podcast, where the everyday Christian can get caught up on a week's worth of news in 15 minutes without opinion and much bias. I am your host, Isaac Lopez, and this is presented by the Life Given Radio. Without further ado, let's get to the stories. 5 sections, 3 minutes each. Timer is on. Politics are up to bat first. Voting data at the end of December. 2 data scientists, Justin Mealy and David Lobu, testified before the state Senate in Augusta to address the question of voting integrity in Georgia. Their research tracked votes that in certain counties had been taken away from President Donald Trump. Nearly 30,000 votes in Georgia were subtracted from Trump's total, while another 12,000 were switched to the total of Joe Biden's. For example, in Fulton County, Georgia, President Trump had 29,931 votes at 9:11 p.m., while Joe Biden had 17,218 votes. At the next update minutes later, Trump was reported to have 17,218, and Biden had 29,931, a total of 12,173 votes switched from Trump to Biden. President Trump went on to lose Georgia by 12,670 votes. Rachel Rodriguez was arrested for election fraud in Texas. Amongst the charges are illegal voting, unlawfully assisting people vote by mail, and unlawfully possessing an official ballot. Each charge constitutes a felony. A city councilman in Impeached, Louisiana was arrested on 8 counts of election fraud. He is accused of illegally registering 24 people in his district as he ran for re-election in November. He won re-election by just 19 votes. Despite how 2021 has treated President Donald Trump, 2020 saw him as the most admired man in the United States. He beat out President Obama 18% to Obama's 15%. Despite this, President Trump is the first president to be impeached twice. The House, led by Speaker Nancy Pelosi, voted to impeach Trump based off of the allegations that he cited violence at the Capitol last week. The vote was 232 to 197. The decision will await the Senate's vote. Trump will leave office when Joe Biden is inaugurated on January 20th. Trump has been completely silenced, as he has not only been banned by Instagram and Facebook, but now Twitter continues to join the party and bang the drum. He has been cited for citing violence, and more of his followers have been citing violence as well. A NASA scientist pleads guilty to Chinese ties. During an interview, Meyer, chief scientist for exploration technology at NASA's Ames Research Center, pled guilty to lying in an investigation regarding his ties to China. The DOJ stated that Meyer participated in China's 1,000 Talents program, a program established by the Chinese government to recruit individuals with access to or knowledge of foreign technology or intellectual property. More on that story later. We are on to sports as our next topic. Alabama beat Ohio State in the national championship in college football, 52-24. Congratulations to Alabama as the dynasty continues to roll on there. Another legend, Urban Meyer, has officially been hired as the head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He won 3 championships as a college coach. He takes the job at an opportune time as the Jags have the overall first-round pick in this year's NFL draft. The Brooklyn Nets acquired James Harden in a blockbuster trade with the Houston Rockets. This trade included 4 different teams, but Houston was the beneficiary of 4 first-round picks, and these following players: Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum, Rodions Kurucs. Demonstrations are scheduled to occur across California later today on Friday. This is an organized effort by parents that will be picketing 3 different high schools as they voice their frustrations that their kids who are involved in contact sports have not been allowed to play since the beginning of lockdowns. To conclude, a group of parents in Western New York are organizing to challenge the state's restrictions on high schools' athletics, specifically basketball, hockey, and wrestling. According to this report at the Olean Times-Herald, the law firm asked these parents not to speak with the media until the suit is filed but confirmed they will argue against the state's contention that certain sports are a high risk of spreading coronavirus and highlight the mental and social effects of the shutdown on young athletes. And that concludes our sports sections with a minute and 20 seconds to spare. On to COVID and health. The health section, mostly COVID. A recent Gallup poll shows that Americans, when asked to rate their mental health on a scale of excellent, good, fair to poor, dropped off significantly from years past. Only 76% of Americans rated their mental health positively. This is an all-time low. Included in this was a breakdown of the excellent ratings. Now, this report is coming from Sam Nihis at the Life Given News, so you can follow the link to read more about this. But across all demographics, these ratings decreased, except for those people who attended religious services weekly. Governor Cuomo in New York, of the state of New York, says it's time to open up as his state is slowly recovering from when unemployment hit it hard. Although it has improved in recent months from 15.3%, the unemployment rate, that is, to 8.4% in November, that is still higher than the national unemployment rate, which is, as of November, 6.7%. Cuomo is quoted for saying, "We simply cannot stay closed until the vaccine hits critical mass." Now, the CDC recently contradicted Deborah Birx, who came out and said that there was probably a new strand of the COVID virus due to the surge of cases nationwide. The CDC said that researchers have been monitoring U.S. strains since the pandemic began, including 5,700 samples collected in November and December. To date, neither researchers nor analysts at CDC have seen the emergence of a particular variant in the United States, as has seen with the emergence of a couple in the United Kingdom and South Africa. Now, according to an article on the Federalist, some states may already have immunity. And I quote, "Experts estimate that at least 2/3 of the population need to have neutralized antibodies in order to reach herd immunity. 2/3 of the 325 million people in the United States is about 218 million. You can get antibodies that neutralize the virus in one of two ways: taking an effective vaccine, which is only being started to be administered, or having been infected with the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. About 19 million people in the U.S. have had confirmed COVID cases, but the CDC estimates that about 8 more people have been infected by each one with a documented case. Now, if you multiply the 19 million known cases by 8, it is possible that about 152 million people are already immune." End quote. Now, Joe Biden's stimulus plan was released recently, and its features are a $1,400 stimulus check and an extension of enhanced unemployment through September. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to faith, family, and freedom, which honestly has quite a bit of good news within it. Let's get to it. Missouri becomes the first state to ban abortion, according to an Operation Rescue investigative report, this coming from The Blaze. On the nationwide status of abortion facilities in 2020, a total of 45 abortion facilities closed or halted abortions nationwide in 2020, leaving Missouri without an active abortion facility. Now, the state does have an open abortion facility, but it does not itself provide abortion procedures. It recommends to out-of-state abortion clinics. Now, a third-grade teacher in California at Meyer Elementary School told 8 and 9-year-old students that they live in a dominant culture of white, middle-class, cisgendered, educated, able-bodied Christians who created and maintained this culture in order to hold power and stay in power. This direct quote from Christopher F. Rufo, also a report from The Blaze. Apparently, the educator went on to have the students create an identity map where the children listed their race, class, gender, religion, family structure, and other characteristics. Yikes. The FBI warns police of violence on Election Day. The FBI held a phone call with thousands of police chiefs across the nation on Wednesday to warn them that there is a high risk of violence in the days ahead of President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration. Now, according to the New York Times, FBI Director Christopher Wray said that Capitol buildings could be a target for some of this violence. Now, some of you may be wondering why I haven't gotten to it, but this is where I wanted to include it. Parler is shut down. Apple and Google kicked Parler out of their App Store, and then Amazon Web Services deplatformed their website. Maybe not necessarily correlated with this, but Twitter shares dropped 12% after the company banned President Donald Trump and a slew of other conservatives. Returning to Parler, they might have found a new harbor and might have found a new web server, that being the company Epic, which also hosts the social media Gab. Now, when the news broke, the company did release a statement saying that it has had no contact or discussions with Parler in any form regarding our organization becoming their registrar or hosting provider. But from our understanding, the quote goes on, Parler was working on satisfying the requested terms placed upon them by various elements of their supply chain. And to date, no communication has been received by them for discussion of future service provision. Now, this article did go on to say that, to wrap this up, that to read between the lines, that doesn't mean that they aren't working in tandem with Epic. They might have created a website, but they still need to negotiate the finer details. If you're still a little confused on the differentiation between that I'm drawing there, do follow the link in the description. I just had a brain fart there for a second. Let's wrap some things up with some good news. Now, after all of this talk of data and privacy, there is a new way to protect your data. Sir Tim Berners-Lee, known for founding the World Wide Web, has begun a new startup company called Inrupt. The company's vision is to put individuals back in control of their own data. Berners-Lee wrote in a 2018 article that certain companies have too much control over the individual's data. But for all the good we've achieved, the web has evolved into an engine of inequity and division, swayed by powerful forces who use it for their own agendas, and end quote. Inrupt is hoping to revolutionize the web with a technology called Solid. A person who downloads this new software will log in through an individual pod, a personal online database that gives you the power to pick what data apps and websites will be allowed to see. You can find this and a bit more information on the Life Given News. This is an article I wrote up. Now, multiple places are coming out in defense of individuals, not just Sir Tim Berners-Lee. In North Dakota, Republican legislators have proposed a bill that would potentially allow residents of the state to sue social media companies if those social media companies have over 1 million users. They could be, and I quote, liable in a civil action for damages to the person whose speech is restricted, censored, or suppressed, and to any person who reasonably otherwise would have received the writing, speech, or publication. Poland joins North Dakota, and honestly, with the things that Poland has done with the pro-life movement, I'm very tempted to move there. They are proposing, more specifically, the prime minister there has announced the introduction of laws to protect freedom of speech on the internet, and that they could fine social media companies. He also denounced big tech for stifling free speech on social media platforms. He wrote on Facebook that the internet over time has come to be dominated by international corporations that treat people's online activities as a source of revenue and a tool to increase their power. This from the Epoch Times, and you can find all of that and more in the show notes, in the description. And it's always good news to hear people pushing back for the right cause. And with that concludes your Brief Newsbrief. Now, if you enjoy the Brief Newsbrief podcast, you may like the Brief newsletter, which will continue to have reporting like this, and it is starting up this week. Sign up for that in the link below to have more of this in your inbox. If you want to drop a tip on a story, do email me at thebriefnewsbrief@gmail.com. Also, if you want more reporting from reporters like me who share my vision, check out The Life Given News, a site dedicated to reporting in succinct and in an honest way. If you're interested in writing for TLG, reach out to me at thelifegivenandreceived@gmail.com. I would be happy to talk about this with you. Follow me on the social medias if you want, if that's your thing. If not, just stick around for this podcast. You can find me on Gab, Parler if it ever comes back. You can find me on MeWe and Facebook as Isaac Lopez. You can find me also on Instagram at Sam_Low97. You can also find this radio channel on Instagram at The Life Given Radio, and you can find us on Facebook at The Life Given News. Now, in conclusion, remember who the real enemy is. Ephesians 6:12. God bless, and I will speak with you next Friday.